there sounds like there's a very powerful incentive trap here.
Yeah.
If there is a group of humans that are using the anthropogenic warming of the climate, I think is the term you use, climate change, basically, as the narrative under which more money printing or more regulation or more taxation is necessary. And then the proceeds stolen through taxation, inflation, and regulation are used to fund this research that then finds and verifies the motivations for more
and the media.
So isn't this I see an incentive trap here that leads us into self-deception in a way, right? It's like, okay, I need an excuse to print more money, which means I need research saying that climate change is disastrous. Let me fund the research and researchers that will say that climate change is disastrous. And that will create more of this narrative in the eye of the public that will justify ever more money printing, taxation, inflation, regulation.
Yeah, the crisis.
Isn't this a vicious cycle?
For sure, if you have no crisis, you can't print money. That I think. Then people would say you have to be fiscally conservative or something. But so you need a crisis to print money. That's for sure. But
then the printed money is used to fund the justification for the crisis itself. So aren't we stuck in this loop?
Oh, for sure. But we are now. I mean, the one thing that's worse. Okay, let me see. There are 3 levels of bad or evil, let's say. Huh? So the one thing is like the normal corruption of science. Yes? There's also a guy called the Nobel Prize physicist, what's his name, who called it cargo cult science, where you just you had you know this?
Yes, yeah.
Like the
they saw the airplane that they'd never seen
it was like these islands in the Pacific.
They'd never seen airplanes
during the
before.
war. There was a military base and an airstrip.
Yeah.
And then after the war, they never saw these planes coming down anymore. And then they created a religion.
Yes.
That we have to make an airstrip and then wave and then the planes will come again.
Yes.
So he says this is in science that you have cargo cult science. They do all the things right. They get the papers, they get the grants, peer review, blah blah. But it's all only informed. There's no real knowledge. But so that is bad, because I always say if science goes in the wrong way for maybe a generation, Max Planck famously said, science progresses one funeral at a time.
Yes, I thought that was Pascal, but I love
Max Planck.
Max Planck. That's a great quote for Bitcoin, by the way.
So you get, normally science will go awry for 50 years. Yes. But normally if it's pure science, say like in physics, the string theory or something, how much money do you throw away? Maybe 100 million? Yeah, some careers, some mortgages, some children grew up happily with the money they stole, basically, from the system. Then the bad thing, I would say, is climate science, or some things that you see in the medical field, maybe, where this gets amplified by the loop of media and government from 100 million to several hundred billion money scale,
Right.
Like if Germany, the Energiewende, like their energy transformation that ended up emitting more CO2 than before, cost them about 400 billion so far or something. It's like insane amounts.
And that's
of money.
made them more energy dependent.
Process, right? It's totally crazy. I once heard a crazy story about that there was a moment where the German economy was so strong relative to the French economy that people were scared that the European Union would break apart because Germany would get so much stronger than France. And that one of the reasons they did this energy event was like a kind of like a tax to keep Germany down a little bit, so France and Germany could go happily ever after. But so that's bad. So then you go from 100 million stealing, which I think happens all the time. Bernie Madoff. Oh no, he did a few billion. I guess. Let's say 100 million for one generation of bad science, to several hundred billion for a climate scare, and maybe even running down the whole economy in the long run. And then you get, I would say, the military-industrial complex. That's evil, in my mind. When you get war after war, like a forever war.
Right.
But then if we go to, that Eisenhower predicted the military-industrial complex. It's always funny that these presidents, when they go, they leave a statement. that is usually very prescient. But he also wrote about science. It's very short. Can I read it?
Please.
So it's very important because it's never, you hear military-industrial coupling. You hear it all the time, but this you don't hear so much. Okay. Eisenhower, 1961. Akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. In this revolution, research has become central. It also becomes more formalized, complex, and costly. A steadily increasing share is conducted for, by, or at the direction of the federal government. Today, the solitary inventor tinkering in a shop has been overshadowed by task forces of scientists in laboratories and testing fields. In the same fashion, the free university, historically the fountainhead of free ideas and scientific discovery, has experienced a revolution in the conduct of research. Partly because of the huge costs involved, a government contract becomes virtually a substitute for intellectual curiosity. I get goosebumps. For every old blackboard, there are now hundreds of new electronic computers. The prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present and is gravely to be regarded. And then the last one. Yet, in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific technological elite. So, and this is, I think you could say, where I say that it's also the scientists that are the bad guys, because I don't know about the average politician and their understanding of physical concepts, or even you had these guys in Congress, and the congressman asked the lady if she knows how much carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere. And she just has no clue, and it's about climate, you know. And so you get policymakers, they don't even know the composition of the atmosphere.
Can I? Oh gosh. Okay, so I hear what you're saying here, that maybe the scientists are more to blame for some of this than the politicians, but I want to go a layer deeper perhaps, because it seems like the problem with the scientists is actually their skewed motivations as it pertains to money, right? As actually trying to get these government contracts, or to, you know, if it bleeds, it leads type of science, right? I need to do this study as it pertains to global warming rather than as it pertains to some actual pursuit of truth, right? About the glaciers.
Or solve a real problem.
Exactly. So is this not if we're looking at the issue more fundamentally, isn't this more an issue of the corruption of money itself? The fact that money is being printed and stolen and then being used to fund some of these scientific enterprises. Whereas if we're on a sound, honest monetary standard, presumably you wouldn't have these narratives, and you wouldn't have the original lie to support, right? You wouldn't be able to fund so let's focus on climate change. You wouldn't have the interested parties that wanted to support the climate change narrative, because the money printing that climate change is meant to motivate would not be possible. So if it's almost like the possibility of stealing is what promotes the lying, and that lying seems to permeate every level, even the scientific enterprise itself. So is it the problem with scientists per se, or is this a problem with fiat scientist, if you will?
Oh, fiat for sure. In that sense that there's like one government or one agency, and in that sense it's fiat, literally, because the agency says this is
what you're going to do.
Sound science, and that's not sound. And you see these scientists that get, how do you say, excluded.
Yeah.
We don't have the gulag like the Soviets had it, but it's kind of an alternative gulag.
They're just economically exiled.